Right, my name's Sheila and I was born in Homerton Hospital, Hackney.
Right.
I lived in Great Eastern Buildings, which were directly opposite Truman's. Directly. You could see the stack with the Truman's name if you went on the roof, very clearly. The streets round there were always cobbled, so I never knew anything different. It was just cobbled. And the actual entrance to Truman's was actually in Wilk Street. So when I was a child, seeing a team of horses with a cart and draymen sitting on top with their aprons on was nothing to me. It was just everyday, just an everyday thing. And I would go down a little bit, and there was the Grey Eagle pub, which we used to go in on Saturday night. Not me, because I was only a child. And then there was Leon's. Leon was a nice man, Jewish man. We're all Jewish. I'm Jewish. And whenever I went in there, his shop was always very dark, and you had to go down like a little slope first. And he would always be leaning on the counter with his head in a newspaper. And it doesn't matter who went in there, never looked up. He just went, "What do you want?" And it used to scare me. I mean, I was only little, and he wouldn't serve you until you showed him your money first, yeah. And I'd say, "Can I have an ice cream, please?" And he wouldn't even answer. He would just get up from his paper, give you the ice cream, take the money, and immediately you went out of the shop, he'd be back in the paper again. But he was a nice man. He was quite dark-skinned, stocky. I think he was Russian descent, Russian Jew or a Polish Jew. But he was a nice man. I mean, he wasn't offensive at all. But it was just because I was little. And opposite the little cobbled street this side, this was when I was maybe 6, 7, there used to be a tiny little greengrocers called Lottie's. And after a few years she went. But if you went out my buildings and turned right, on the corner, I think it was Nelson Street, there used to be a tiny little baker's, and they were, I think, Ashkenazi Jews. They had all the long beards and I'd go in there and get my cream cake or whatever I could afford. We didn't have any money. But on the corner of Wilk Street, there used to be, it was like a hardware come everything, really. And we used to call it, there was a lady in there, which to me she always looked like a witch. We used to call her Mother Goldstein. She was a big lady because, you know why? Because her hair was very grey. She didn't have a lot of it, but it was always everywhere. And my nan used to give me, I don't know if you're, 2pence 3 farthings, which is 2 pennies and 3/4 of a penny, to go and get a gas mantle. Because in the buildings we didn't have any electricity. You had to put this mantle in a glass shade, and it had 2 chains. And you'd take a match, and you'd barely put the match to the... My nan always used to say to me, "Don't put the match too close, cock, because you'll disintegrate the mantle." And you'd put the match there and pull the chain very gently, and the whole room lit up. It was amazing, really. But for me, it was just normal. We never had hot running water. We never had a sink indoors. We had what we call a wash house that had 2 white enamel sinks and a big butler sink, which wasn't very deep, but it was quite big, and a mangle. And you shared that and a toilet with 4 families. That's how it was. But we didn't know any different, so that's how we lived. And to me, looking back now, fantastic days. If I should have savoured those days more. But of course you don't think at the time, it's just life, isn't it? In the buildings we had every entrance had, there were 3 entrances on each side, or 4, probably, no, there were 3. You had a big dust chute, and what it was like a brick built little box, and it had a big heavy iron door on it, so you'd put your rubbish on each landing down the chute, and then the dustman would come and collect it. And I remember standing there fascinated watching these dustmen, because they'd open the iron door and they'd shovel the rubbish and they'd put it in a cart and then take it out. And one day I was standing there, I couldn't believe my eyes. As he opened the door, this rat ran out. And, you know, he just went like that.